My friends, be honest now. Have you ever fantasized about being great, about being world famous? Can you imagine the great feeling of walking onto the platform while the band plays Hail to the Chief? Or to spike the football in the end zone after scoring the winning touchdown for the Super Bowl? Something deep within us cries out to be recognized as being somebody, to attain, to achieve, to be great. Now, such is a scenario with James and John in today's gospel story. Now, take a moment to get into the scene. Jesus and his disciples were on their way to Jerusalem. Jesus soon will be put to death. And he tells them once again that he will suffer, die, but then rise on the third day. Now, James and John totally misread the situation. As Jesus pours out this most poignant thing about his life that he's ever said to them, they blunder in with a totally selfish agenda. See to it that we sit one at your right and one at your left in your kingdom. How totally insensitive, we would say. These two disciples are so wrapped up in their own need of being somebody that they aren't listening as Jesus explains his mission for them. However, he doesn't rebuke them for the request. He simply seeks to redirect it. He says, "Whoever would be great among you must be the servant of all." You see, the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, to give his life as a ransom for many. He really helps us focus our quest to be somebody where it needs to be focused. You see, greatness has more to do with partnership than it does with position and power. Culture tends to confuse greatness with pedestals. Now, Jesus associates greatness with partnership in ministry. "Are you able to drink the cup that I drink?" he said to them. You know, at any royal feast, it was the custom of the king to hand over the cup shared at the table. It was a way of saying to his guests, "Since you share my struggles in the kingdom, so now you share my joys as well." Had they realized that the places at his right and left when he came into his kingdom were not honored seats but crosses, they might not have been so eager to share his pilgrimage. Jesus asked them, as he asks us, "Can you drink the cup of partnership with me?" You know, greatness also has more to do with involvement than it does with ambition or authority. "Are you willing to be baptized with my baptism?" he asked them. Now, the Greek word for baptism means to dip. It is frequently used to describe being submerged in any experience. A capsized boat can be submerged in water. Someone may be submerged in sorrow or in debt. Jesus was asking them as he asked us, "Are you willing to be submerged in my mission as God is with me?" Now, the greatest of all must be the servant of all, Jesus said. Now, the norm of greatness is not how many people we command or we supervise. The Christian norm of greatness is how many people we serve. And with what involvement do we serve them? You see, greatness is being submerged in service of others. That kind of life calls for commitment. It calls for a certain quality of living that I guess we can use the word integrity. Integrity is really a hard thing to find these days. The words of Jesus today call us to give up prominence seeking for partnership, authority and ambition for involvement, and selfishness for a serving lifestyle that relates to the world with integrity. There's a story about a young nurse and a certain doctor who was one of the well-known physicians of his time, and she always dreamed of being a surgical assistant. Well, finally the day came when the nurse was called to work with this eminent surgeon. Surgery proceeded well, and she was feeling good about herself. Now, as the time came to close the incision, the doctor said, "We'll close now. Suture." But the nurse, responsible for the sponge count, responded, "We use 12 sponges, doctor. I only have 11. "Do you question my authority?" he said. I said, "We'll close now. Suture." "But, doctor, I only have 11 sponges." "Don't be impudent, miss. I said suture." At that, the young nurse fairly blazed, "But, doctor, think of the patient." The eminent surgeon smiled, lifted his foot, and there was the final sponge. He had been testing her. You see, a surgical nurse needs a sort of integrity that is involved, submerged in patient well-being. He wanted to see if she had what it takes to serve his pilgrimage, and he hired her permanently. You see, that's the kind of greatness that God wants for us. Passionately involved, genuinely invested in caring about people and doing our best to serve them.